is a Bramble Jam podcast. Hello, it's Bran, and I love modern day Christmas hits.
I'm Alonzo, and I'm here for what I signed up to be here for, and this
is the Deck the Hallmark podcast. Ebenezer Scrooge is gone from my background, which means we're back in color worlds. Woo. It's good fun. Hello, Alonzo. How are you, buddy?
I'm excellent. How are you, sir?
I haven't talked to you in so long.
I know. I feel
So
that
long.
ache.
What are you working on these days? Are you allowed to tease anything? Is there anything you're allowed to tease?
Not really anything teasable. I did I assisted our friend Brian Earl with a project that he's got.
This is really what I was getting at. I just didn't know if you were allowed to talk about it.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
Brian has a book coming out this Christmas called Christmas Past, which is based on his very successful and wonderful podcast of the same name. And it's a peek at, it's kind of an advent calendar. It's 25 chapters of different facets of Christmas history. If you want to know, why do we drink eggnog? And why do we say Merry Christmas instead of Happy Christmas? And why mistletoe? Why holly? Why It's a Wonderful Life, all those things. It's a really fun read, and I think it's already available for pre-order, and that's going to be dropping I think like in September. So
they are just moving at lightning speed over there.
Totally, yeah. So that's going to be a big fun maybe 6 for this holiday season, and you can always purchase it in tandem with I'll Be Home for Christmas movies.
That's exactly right.
Just saying.
That's exactly right. I'm excited to give it a once over. It's another one of those covers that's just going to be nice to have around the Christmas season. Is it like basically the podcast but in written form? So like if I've heard the Happy Christmas episode, is it going to be more the same?
Well, you'll find new stuff. There's a lot of fun. Like he put a lot of sidebars throughout, so it's sort of like the basic information from the episode is there, but like here's an old article from the 1800s about cool. how to serve Christmas dinner, or here's the other verses of Jingle Bells. So there's lots of fun new stuff sprinkled throughout. So even if you're already a fan of the podcast, you'll come away with things you didn't know about these different sort of parts of the Christmas season.
I found out on Tinsel Tunes podcast that Jingle Bells, the melody was originally a little bit different in the chorus. And it was like, I'm going off memory, but it was like jingle bells, jingle all the way. It's like this weird, like downer at the end.
Huh. Okay. Well, yeah, that song's got a crazy history.
And the guy who wrote it, racist. Can you believe it?
That's part of the crazy history. Yes.
Can you believe it?
It was a minstrel song. And then, but apparently it also ties into like sleigh culture and like songs about sleighing, which is a thing. I didn't know any of this. So
apparently apparently sleigh racing was like a thing.
Yeah, or just sleighing, like it was public transportation in certain parts of the country. Like they would take old boats in Boston or whatever and convert them into these sleighs that were like hopping on a bus. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. It's a fun book. You should check it out.
There's so many great Christmas podcasts out there these days.
It's true. I'll tell you, and I feel a little bit less of a weirdo about thinking about this stuff all year round, because clearly a lot of folks do.
A lot of folks do, and there's room for more. So come on in. The water's fine.
Well, you're not going to 5 weeks of Christmas.
You're not going to get rich off of it, but you'll have fun. You'll have fun talking about the thing you love,
and you might get a book deal out of it. You never know.
You might get a book deal out of it. I mean, so far, 2 out of 100.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Really not bad though. Percentages of the Christmas podcasts out there, 2 of them. Although ours is Christmas adjacent now, but
but you started as Christmas.
It's not a bad percentage.
Yeah,
overall.
Not at all.
All right, are you ready?
Lay it on me. What do we got here?
So this is a movie that I didn't see until a few years ago. Now, so we're gonna watch Fred Claus.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, Mr. Grumpy Boy Pants.
Okay.
So there's another movie on your list of movies that you don't like. I haven't seen 4 Christmases that I saw before this one, And it was one of those, like, I watched it because I also hadn't seen that. I'm relatively new to Four Christmases, and it came up as you should also watch this. Makes sense.
Sure.
I'm not. I don't want to give my hot take. I'm more interested to just have a conversation with you about this movie.
Okay. Well, look, if you're going to subject me to only one Vince Vaughn Christmas movie, first, thank you, and second, I would rather it be this one. I will say this in defense of Fred Claus. I'm going to watch it again before we talk about it, and I can really go in deep. Paul Giamatti, one of my favorite movie Santa Clauses. I wish the movie rendered were better, but I love Paul Giamatti as a movie Santa Claus.
Paul Giamatti can do no wrong.
Right? I agreed.
It's great Santa. So let's take a break.
Yes.
And then let's come back and we'll talk about it and in detail, and not to mention at all the CGI work in this movie. I promise we won't talk about it at all.
Or Kevin Spacey.
Oh, I forgot about Kevin Spacey. I just watched 21 with Kevin Spacey.
Yeah. Do you know that in real life, all those students were Asian?
No.
All Asian American students, and they all magically became white when the movie came out.
I think there's one Asian in it.
Maybe one. Maybe one.
Let's give credit where credit's due.
I don't think credit is due, frankly, but
Kevin Spacey. You. I keep forgetting. All right, well, we're gonna do it anyway. We'll be right back here at Tech the Whole Park.
We are back, and we've watched Fred Claus. And we're better for it. This movie, can you believe it? They lost money.
No.
I know. Only like 3 million, 2 million. So no big deal. No big deal.
I think the math used to be that you had to make 1.5 times your budget to go to at least break even.
Right, because that's the budget's not counting advertising and
yeah, exactly. Advertising, what they used to call P&A, prints and advertising, although prints is less of a thing now since everything's digital. But also, it's not like every month, every penny of your movie ticket goes right to the studio. The theater keeps like a chunk of it. And so, yeah. And I think the math now might be like 2.5, 3 times your budget to break even. But yeah, this did not.
Well, and that's shocking. It originally, are you ready to dive in?
Please.
It originally aired on, by aired, I mean, was released into the theaters on November 9th, 2007. And it went a little something like this. Meet the Claus family. You got Nick, who's a big boy. And then you got Fred. Who's this Fred? Fred's not as loved. He doesn't feel loved. Nick's special. It's nice and whatnot. And that's, he's, cutting down trees and, things like that kids do that are special. Sure. Fred's not that kind of guy. And Fred is just having a real tough time throwing apples at his brother's face and whatnot. Cut to modern day. And Nick is obviously Santa Claus, and Fred is just up to no good. He is, constantly like in need of money, like being a real sketchball. He is helping out a kid, which is nice. But then he's always like breaking his word to his girlfriend and stuff like that. And he wants some money so that he can do something with it. Start a bit. I don't know. He needs money.
He wants to open an off-track betting in Chicago.
Great.
Horse racing.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be? And so he knows exactly where he wants to go, but he needs the money. And so he does some things such as, stealing Salvation Army money and all this good stuff. And ultimately he has to go to Fred, to Nick, to Santa, to see if he can give him some money to bail him out of jail, and also pay money to people that he owes. And Nick says, okay, but you have to come to the North Pole to earn it. He's not very happy about that, but what can he do? Sends an elf down, bring him up to the North Pole, and he is in charge of basically deciding who's naughty and who's nice. That's tough. He doesn't love that, but what can you do? There's an efficiency expert and his name is Northcutt, Clyde Northcutt, and he is just a real party pooper, who is he just seems to have something going on, something something not maybe totally right with him. That's crazy, huh? And
casting against type.
Yeah, I know. And so Fred finally, he's sick of being up there, and he ends up like throwing a temper tantrum and starts making everybody nice type of thing. And that's thanks to Northcutt kind of whispering in his ear. He's trying to cause things. He clearly wants to shut the North Pole down, which is a thing that I guess an efficiency expert can do. And so after that, basically that's strike 3. They're going to shut down the North Pole. Fred and Nick get in a big fight. Nick is, fat and in pain and stuff. And so it's a whole thing. Fred goes back to the city, and he's just like, can't really handle this anymore. And he goes to an AA meeting, but for siblings of famous people. Yeah. And that, is super helpful. And he decides
that joke
he wants
killed in 2007.
Oh, absolutely. And he ends up having a change of heart, and he wants to go back to the North Pole, and they make as many easy gifts overnight as possible so they can get to the needed number to get to all the houses and whatnot. And Northcutt's not happy about that. He sees that the light's on and is running, and he goes in there, and Nick goes in there and gives him a pep talk about how he is, a special kid, and he wears a cape now. I don't know. Anyway, they make all the presents, and Northcutt's going to work there forever. And Fred and Nick are going to be friends, and Fred ended up going to the doing all the deliveries because Nick is hurt, and he's now a better person. And after they're all delivered, Fred goes back to the North Pole, and he has a great night. We get to see an elf kiss another elf, a taller elf, all good stuff. Anyway, everything's good between Fred and his girlfriend, and he takes a spin on the sleigh, goes to Paris, and it's great. And the Claus family is now happy. The parents are hanging out. Everybody is loving each other, and Fred's a new man. And that, my friends, was
Fred Claus. We did it.
Let's talk about it, buddy. Let's start with our hot take. Let's share how we felt about it. When did you see it first, and how much do you hate me?
I went to a press screening of this on the Warner Brothers lot, which I remember because to go to this screening, I had to cross a Writers Guild picket line. And generally, my rule in life is you never cross a picket line, but I wasn't going onto the lot to transact business. I was just being shown a movie. And believe me, my review did not sell any tickets for that movie. So I felt like that in this case, it was acceptable. And
how often are screenings at a lot?
It depends. Sometimes, like Paramount has a big screening room, and Warner Brothers has a handful of them. So not all the time, but it's not uncommon. It's it's a thing they'll do. I hated this movie in 2007, and revisiting it last night, I still hate it. It's a reminder of, and I think this came up before on one of the earlier, newbies that you made me sit through. It makes you appreciate all the more the magic of Elf. That Elf rides that line between being like snarky and self-aware and contemporary, and being sort of timeless and sweet and innocent and fable-like. And that's a really tough combo, and this movie does not get anywhere near it. And it's just unappealing, and Fred is a terrible character. And I will say this, Paul Giamatti, one of my favorite screen Santas. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, he's one of my favorite screen Santas in this movie.
Yeah.
How about you?
So I didn't see it for the first time until relatively recently, like within the past 5 years or so. I am like, by and large, like not crazy about Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
I kind of feel, people might get mad at me about this, but I kind of feel like with Vince Vaughn the same way I feel about Ryan Reynolds, which is just like
a little goes a long way.
Little goes a long way. Little goes a long way. And I think if it's between, like, he did this movie and I feel like Four Christmases, they're right in like the same time period. It feels like,
yeah,
right?
Very close together. And I think actually Four Christmases, because you have to remember, he and Jon Favreau go way back, and Swingers was their big breakthrough for both of them. Favreau directs Elf, and then Vince Vaughn tries to do the Christmas, but this one doesn't do it. And then they team up and make Four Christmases, which also doesn't work for me. But
Well, this is what I was going to say. I think of the Vince Vaughn Christmas movies, I like Four Christmases more. Like he's less of a chore. It's less of a chore, and maybe that's Reese Witherspoon, like, because she's a delight. But there's just not. Go ahead.
No. I mean, you're right. Yeah, I think Reese Witherspoon helps a lot. Katie Mixon, I remember really liking in that movie, like way before American Housewife. That was the movie I was like, I'm learning your name. I like you.
And Kristen Chenoweth is in it, and she's always a delight. So there's more to like in that movie, but there are Christmassy things in this movie that I really like. This to me is a Christmas movie where Four Christmases is a movie that takes place at Christmas. Like this, the North Pole's super dope. There are things that haven't aged well, not just joke wise, but like the CGI of the elves and taking normal sized humans, like a full size. And sorry, that sounds really mean to people that aren't, you get what I'm saying?
I understand.
Like, and for some reason doing CGI to make them small, I don't know why they chose to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is just coincidentally a movie that opened last Friday when this drops, is this film called Aileen, which is this French movie that's about Celine Dion, and it uses Celine Dion songs, but they rename all the characters, but it's still
I saw a poster for it somewhere.
Yeah, I just posted my review on Facebook.
That's probably what it was.
Well, so the director of the film, who's like in her 50s, plays the Aileen character starting at the age of 7. So in the movie, she like is shrunk down to a child, and it's the weirdest thing you've ever seen. And then she's like a 12-year-old, and it's just like, what are we even doing here? And I had forgotten that this movie does that a lot. So they shrink down John Michael Higgins, they shrink down Ludacris. They only semi shrink down Elizabeth Banks, which is a weird.
I don't know why they didn't. Either do it or don't.
Yeah, and so it was just very. It's off-putting, and again, it's like there are plenty of talented and funny, actors who would play those roles without having to be, like CG warped. And you're right. Nothing. I think I've said this before on the show too. Like, turn of the millennium CG is already so much more dated than like 1950s special effects, with like a matte shot or miniatures or whatever. Like the so much of the sleigh stuff is like you can almost see the green outline around the sleigh while Vince Vaughn is rocking around. There's a lot that hasn't aged well. Definitely, also I think the jokes, like the stuff that just 15 years ago was like you could do in a movie, you're now like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have.
Yeah. But going back to the elf thing, like the way that they shot Elf, like it just looks so much better. The fact that they just used like, the way in which you shoot it to scale and stuff like that. Like, those type of tricks, like just work so much better. Why do it?
Inserting a full-size Will Ferrell and then using optical effects or whatever so that everybody else just around him looks smaller is one thing, but to have, and it's not even just like for a few seconds. There's the John Michael Higgins character is the head elf. He's a big character in this, and it's very strange. But even that I think would be forgivable if the movie weren't just such a tonal mess in terms of like Fred is really skeevy and really shady and to the point where you're thinking like, okay, you're an immortal that's like 1,000 years old at least at this point, if not older. why are you still like scrounging around? Like you could be.
You should have been able to figure out a scam by now.
Yeah, he should be like he should be a captain of industry,
Yes.
because certainly, being a scumbag and an immortal, like any vampire movie, they have wealth. They got it through the worst ways possible, probably, but they have it. And this guy is just like such a chiseler for somebody who's, again, 1,000 years old. It just doesn't really, you don't get it. And he's such a crud that it's not really a good fit for a kids movie, frankly, which is this does want to be. For me, the most entertaining part of watching this now was people who weren't famous yet. Did you notice that Bob the Elf is the guy from Ted Lasso?
Yes.
The team, like the guy who works for the company.
Yes.
That was cool. And one of the orphan that the kid who Vince Vaughn sort of takes care of gets in a fight with is Dylan Minnette, who is on The Dropout and is in the new Scream. And you see him in 13 Reasons Why.
And this is all to say also Kevin Spacey's in it, which is unfortunate. But there are things that work. So the North Pole works. Mm-hmm. I think that the whole like I can go to this globe and watch kids thing is creepy. Yeah. The scene at the end where all the elves run and they watch the kids opening the present, I think that's great. And I think the overall messaging of Fred telling Nick that there's no naughty children, I think is great. So there are elements of this that are really
there are some
great.
ideas. There are some ideas that work. You're right, and I think that's a great message. But then, I think one of the things you wouldn't do now is be like, boys get baseball bats and girls get hula hoops. Like, okay,
Gosh, I loved a hula hoop growing up. I was awful at it. My hips slide, but never was a big baseball fan. I would have done
me not so much
situation. So yeah, overall, I do think it's a better Christmas movie than Four Christmases. But if I'm just comparing those two, but Four Christmases is a better movie. If it makes sense to everybody out there. Let's do Christmas spirit. Let's share the things that gave us Christmas spirit, but then also put it on the old scale. Alonzo?
I will say this definitely falls in that category of all the Christmas money can buy, in terms of they have spent money on this North Pole set, on the fake snow. All of that stuff it's what you want it to be.
It looks like $100 million set.
Exactly. It is lush, like Hallmark wishes they could spend that kind of money on just making things look Christmassy. It's gorgeous. Whoever the set designer is really nails it and really, gets that part of it right.
It's up there as best North Poles in my mind. Like, I think to me, the best North Pole is Santa Claus 1 North Pole. Like, I think that is the actual North Pole.
Santa Claus the movie, or
Santa Claus, but Santa Claus 1, Tim Allen, Santa Claus 1.
Oh,
Santa Claus 2.
Okay.
It looks different. They did something different in Santa Claus 2. I don't know, but the North Pole, when he drops down, and that is the North Pole in my mind. So
I thought you meant the 80s one.
No,
with,
no.
Dudley Moore. Okay, all right, gotcha. Yeah, it's a good one. I think the Christmas Chronicles actually do a pretty good North Pole.
Yeah, that's true.
The Netflix ones, those are pretty great. So on that front, absolutely nailed it. On the Christmas feels front, I do like the message that kids aren't naughty. They just might be having a rough time, or there are extenuating circumstances. That's lovely. But the rest of the movie is so it's like you watch the scene where, like, early on, Vince Vaughn tries to raise money for his gambling thing by putting on a Santa hat and fundraising on the street. And of course, he doesn't have a license to do it. And he badmouths the Salvation Army, and the Santas all come chasing after him. And I'm thinking, somebody thought we need a scene where a bunch of Santas chase him down the street, and then reverse engineered to how they were going to get there. It didn't feel like it was organic. It was just like, oh, that was really funny in Jingle All the Way, where Arnold gets in the fight with all the Santa Clauses in the warehouse. Let's have a scene where a bunch of Santas chase Vince Vaughn down the street in Chicago. And then how do we get there? So to me, this movie felt like it was scenes they felt like they had to do, and then sort of the connective tissue to get us there. So yeah, I mean, overall, I guess I'd give this I'd probably give it a 7, just because, again, that North Pole is.
I think that's a good number, a 7, because it is a great North Pole. Again, I think that scene where the elves run and they watch is a beautiful scene.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Albeit creepy, but
you can tell it's a thing like our work is done. Now we get to enjoy kids enjoying,
and like the music behind it is like this beautiful song. It just all works. It's like it's a Christmas Carol, but like this like fun, like ambient, airy. I don't know.
I'll have to look it up. I don't remember.
I think it's Silent Night, and it's like this just really airy ambient version. But it's just beautiful while it's happening.
Sure.
But then there's just so much also actively working against this and Christmas feels. So I think a 7 is fair. 7's fair. What would you recommend?
Well,
Santa brother, sibling.
This movie brings 2 other films to mind. One that is terrible and one that's great, I think. The terrible one, and they actually did this on Mystery Science Theater 3000, and you can watch it on Netflix. And if you're going to watch the movie at all, I would recommend watching it that way because it's really awful. It's a 60s film called The Christmas That Almost Wasn't. And it is about a mean guy who buys the North Pole and tries to kick Santa out, tries to like foreclose on the mortgage on the warehouse or whatever. And so plot wise, it's kind of similar, but it's really dumb. The good movie that this reminds me of, which also deals with sort of the Santa Claus family and about them having to kind of pull together to make Christmas happen, would be the animated film Arthur Christmas, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yes, that's a great recommendation.
Yeah,
because you still get that sibling
absolutely
rivalry going on. So yeah, that works really well. I'll go Hallmark recommendation. I'll do Finding Santa, which I don't remember all that much, but I remember there being, it's like Santa's son or something. But
it's the guy, the local Santa who does the big parade every year, like breaks his ankle or something, and he can't do the parade, and national TV news is going to come cover the parade. So Jodie Sweetin has to go cross country to find this guy's son because he's a really good Santa, but he doesn't want to do it anymore because he was tired of being in his father's shadow, and like has to convince him to come back to the town with her. Like I think hires him as an Uber driver and makes him drive her all the way from Boston back to the small town or whatever.
I just remember there being an element of not wanting to be in the family business, like Santa business. It's been a minute since I've seen it. Maybe we should cover that for Christmas in July this year. Hopefully it airs.
Yeah, that's wasn't in the book. That's a good catch up. Noel I think fits in that category.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What doesn't, Noel can probably, Noel just has its roots like in every Christmas movie. You could probably just watch Noel and you'll watch it every week. All right. Are you ready to tell everybody what we're going to be watching next week?
Oh, I am.
All right, I'm going to take off my headphones and you go ahead.
Okay. Exciting news for Bran. It's in color and I think he's going to love it. And I know that a lot of the Hallmark double deckers are fans of this movie. And if you've never seen it before and you're going to watch it for the first time, I envy you getting to see it for the first time because I love this movie so much. It's called Desk Set. It stars Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. And it's not entirely set at Christmas, but there's a big Christmas chunk in it that makes it a holiday favorite and a movie that I watch every year. So that's what we're watching next week. Desk Set.
Man, just a whole monologue there. I can't wait. We'll watch that, everybody, and then we'll be back next week and we'll do the whole thing. I can't wait. Alonzo, until then, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.